Listen, I want T'Challa to be recast as well, but some people are taking it way too far. Hey, what's up, Nerd fam? This is your boy Bashan. I want to welcome you to Enter the Nerd. Today, I want to talk to you about the whole Recast T'Challa movement. Now, mind you, I am also for the recasting of T'Challa. However, my ideology behind it is really just rooted behind the fact that the MCU is a universe based on the comic books. Now, it could be loosely adapted, which obviously I gotta face reality to that because they just shit on all the source material when it comes to that, including for Black Panther. If you've actually read the comics, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I figure there's so much narratives and all that attached to T'Challa that it wouldn't make any sense to just leave him out, right? So that's where it comes from. I don't want to leave any story on the table, but he is still a comic book character to me. Now, there are 2 points to the argument that I keep on seeing about Recast T'Challa, which get a little bit, for me, get a little cringy, and it just seems like it's being taken to a place that perhaps it just doesn't need to be. And before I get into those points, let me just tell anyone watching this video that if you have any of these 2 parts of ideology, that just because I don't agree doesn't mean I'm attacking you, doesn't mean I think that you're some kind of a person. I know on the internet it's easy, or just in the world nowadays, when people don't agree with you, you can become so married to a point that you think that, oh, this person doesn't agree, that means they must hate me, that's not where this is coming from. So I'm hoping we're able to compartmentalize and understand that we might not agree, but we can still respect each other for having different ideas about the same character, right? So let's just move on here. It sucks that I have to be able to put that disclaimer on, but that's the world we live in today. The first point would be making T'Challa much deeper than he needs to be, meaning there are people who are literally saying, if T'Challa's not there, who are my kids going to look after? What's the strong Black male they're going to be able to resonate with? And that gets dangerous to me because I'm going, all right, are we saying that African Americans don't have anybody in their nearby vicinity that they have to be represented or look up to? Fictional characters? This is strange to me because as a kid, I've always known about Black Panther and the tons of other Black heroes, woman, man, or whatever, right? They've constantly been there, not just from Marvel and DC, but a lot of the other ones too, like Valiant, Image. And I know if you don't know about them, I get it. I'm not faulting you for not knowing what you don't know. I'm just saying that I looked at a lot of these characters like what they are, comic book characters. The stories that I enjoyed. I had a lot of good times going to the comic book store, reading them with my cousins, with my friends, and even to this day, being able to share some really cool stories about some awesome characters. But that is what they are, right? It is fictional. And for some reason, it's especially like Black Panther, after the film came out, he's been made into like this social figure where Black people are supposed to see themselves like, oh, this is like some ideal view of us. And I'm like, this is very strange. It's a fictional character made from a nation that does not exist under circumstances which also do not exist. It's a cool story, but that is what it is. It's a cool story. And once again, he's not the only character like that, only Black character that's interesting, at least to me. But we'll get into that in the second point. The whole point is, when I even looked at white characters, like my favorite character in comics is actually Spider-Man. It didn't give me like reverence for white people. I didn't think that white people were going to be crawling on walls and all of them were as fantastical as the white dudes that I saw in the comics. I just look at them as what they were, comic book characters. And it's weird because it seems like a lot of people who are pro T'Challa recast, not all, but a lot of them are like, we gotta bring back our king. And it's like, it's almost like they're talking about a real person. It's almost like T'Challa was an activist that they're trying to erase from history. Like it's almost like when you start to like listen to a lot of these people talking a podcast or reading these articles, it gets to like a place where I'm like, whoa, I think we gotta kind of slow it down and just like remove our feelings and understand like who T'Challa actually was as far as being a character, which, if we're being honest, once again, if you don't read the comics, you don't know, was not, they didn't do Wakanda and a lot of the supporting cast, including Black Panther, justice if you know who he is. And that's nothing to do with Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman didn't write the movie, didn't direct the movie, so it's not his fault. He did what he's supposed to do, and like I said in past videos, the Civil War version of him was closer to what the actual comic version was than the Black Panther stuff. So honestly, it's on a weird track anyway when I see this movie. Either way, I still want the character to be there because, like I said, there's a lot of story attached to him. That's really where I'm coming from. Story, not that him as a character does something to my real life existence, because it doesn't. And it's funny because a lot of this stuff, remember, this character's been around for over 40 years. This narrative did not exist until after the movie. So these are a lot of people who didn't even know about the character until then, but for some reason, his existence is life-changing. Like, they weren't saying this for, like, you know, the whole time I've been reading comics, I haven't heard all of this. Mind you, from the people who read the comics, they were very interested in the character, and people in the store, black or white, always thought that he was cool. But now, after the movie comes out, they're like, oh my God, like, we need this, like, we need him. And I'm like, okay, this is, all right, like, I think let's just calm it down a little bit. And I think this brings me to my second point. A lot of people like what T'Challa is as far as him being a king and rich and stuff. I mean, that's cool. Him just being an overall badass. And that's what I like about him too. I like things about his character. He's not, mind you, he's not in my top 10 favorite heroes. He really isn't. There's a whole bunch of other ones that I actually do like, black or otherwise. But he's not the only black character. I guess my second point is everyone's putting their eggs in this Black Panther shaped basket, right? Where everyone's like, this is the one we need. We gotta see this one. And it's like, there are a ton of black characters, not just in Marvel, DC, or otherwise, that we want to see to the screen, that are pretty damn awesome. Now, when I usually say that to people, people go, yeah, well, this is different. It's like the ideal example. I'm like, ideal example? Like, if we're being honest, Luke Cage, Falcon, and a ton of others we're talking about, and I can go into the people who are in other comics like in DC, like with Ambrose Chase and people who are in Stormwatch and a whole bunch of other stuff that you've never read before. But if you look at some of their personalities and stuff like that, like you can resonate with them a lot more than you would be able to someone who was literally born in royalty in a country that was isolated from everyone else, being pretty much irradiated by a meteorite. Like, there's so many things about that if you're talking about real world stuff. But it doesn't matter because I don't look for comics to be realistic. Anyway, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking to find my life in the comic. That's not really what I'm trying to do. And I get a lot of people, that's what they want to do. But the main point, once again, is there are a whole bunch of black characters, and for some reason, if it isn't the pinnacle, we don't want to see them. Doesn't make any sense, right? Like, why not see somebody like Night Thrasher, who is one of my favorites, who I actually do like more than Black Panther, who hasn't really gotten the same shine in the comics, but did have his own run, is the leader of his own team. He is rich as well, not as rich as T'Challa, but he's got money. He trained himself to physical peak fitness, kind of like Batman. There's a lot of similarities with him and Batman, but he's got his own supporting cast. He could get his own series. He also takes another hero into his care, another black hero named Rage. So there's a lot of characters out there that are good. Divinity, who's a super powerful character, but we don't have to only look at him just because he's a king, monarch, and it represents some type of Afrofuturism, which is what people seem to be obsessed with. There's more. There's so many different things. I mean, that's just kind of like my gripe about it. First thing being that for some reason T'Challa, like this super social and socially important character, that if he's not there, it's a detriment to black people in real life. And I'm like, this is nuts. And the second thing, like I said, is acting like he is the only black character that matters. Talk about Falcon. Oh, he's just a sidekick. You never read the comic, because when you read the comic, you understand he's not just a sidekick. Luke Cage. Oh, he's just a hoodlum. Really? Like, this is the type of thing. And mind you, well, unfortunately, when I'm having this conversation, it's not from the people that you would say, white dudes must have said that. No. This is always unfortunately, it's usually black people that say this about this. They go like, oh, Falcon is this, we need the king. Spawn. I say Spawn, right? Who was a dope. What they say to me? Oh, well, you don't even see that he's black anyway, and people like him because he's kind of close to a demon, so white people love that type. But I'm like, holy crap. Look, literally, like, the character has to be some, like, form of perfection to you in order to be acceptable. And that's crazy. Because there's just way too many things. Like, you know, these are the same people who will be like, oh, well, there's so many different types of black people we can be. But then once you show them the different types, it's like, well, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. That's not good. That's not good. We only need this. And this is, a lot of these same people are the ones that are talking about this recast T'Challa. Not everyone. There's some people who are saying the same things like me and just talking about the narrative. But some people like, what does it do for us? What does it do for my children? I'm like, it's, when it came to like me, figuring out who I was as a man, a lot of it had to do with how my parents raised me. My stepfather, my mom, how they raised me. They're the ones who introduced me to the comics anyway, but they weren't like, this means something to you. I mean, and it's also real heroes, like real African-American heroes that existed that I could actually look to and see what they did and how they affected literally how I'm living today. So I will never gonna look at some fictional guy with powers and go like, if he's not on screen, like something's happened to me. It's an affront to me and my people. No. All the characters in comics are just characters in comics written, illustrated on page that I happen to enjoy. It ends and it starts there. For me, at least. Now, if you disagree, hey, we can disagree and we can have a conversation. Maybe you can teach me. You can teach me something. I mean, once again, as far as the characters mean, that I've been reading for years, but if there's something else, maybe your experience tells you something, come on, maybe you're an older guy and you got something else to offer me. Let me know. It doesn't matter. Let's just have that conversation. But that's just really what I think about a lot of these things that I'm seeing when it comes to the whole Recast T'Challa movement. It's just bordering on hyperbole rather than, and it's just a lot of feeling versus just looking objectively what this is, why you should be there versus, you know, just taking them out because narratively it just doesn't serve a purpose. And even Disney, like, they don't seem to be able to compartmentalize too because they're like, oh man, like, we have to honor Chadwick. I'm like, it wasn't made, like, the role wasn't made for Chadwick. It's been around for a long time. So why are you not recasting? Whatever. Let me know what you think. Comment your concerns, your disagreements. Into the nerd.